Here's a list of spruce species that I recommend growing in the South and Tennessee in particular. And I'm going to rank these in order of easiest to obtain to hardest to obtain. So number 1 is the Black Hills spruce. And that's actually a particular cultivar of the white spruce. That's the species, Picea glauca. Sometimes you see the Black Hills spruce labeled as Picea glauca densata. And you can see it's got a little bit of a bluish cast. Here, I'll put that Japanese fir in the background to give some color contrast. Slightly blue compared to that. And this would be the easiest spruce to obtain because usually Lowe's carries this in stock. So it's slightly easier to obtain than the others on this list. And this one has done pretty well. I did lose one white spruce. It didn't actually die completely, but it had been affected by something, possibly spider mites or something else. But this one has actually put on a lot of growth this year. This is approaching 1 foot of vertical growth, really good horizontal growth, and it's just looking great. So Black Hills spruce, you can find it at Lowe's. Now, the easiest to find spruce everywhere appears to be the Colorado blue spruce, but I don't have a single one in my collection because all of the larger specimens I've seen around here are affected by fungus, so I'm avoiding it on purpose. Here's a different white spruce specimen, and this one is right next to some other trees, and it's a good chance for me to point out that white spruce is fairly resilient. It can handle situations where the soil is wetter than normal. It can handle more shade than normal. It can also handle full sun, but this one in the shade seems to be doing very well. It also put on nearly 1 foot of vertical growth. So white spruce is very adaptable, probably more so than the Colorado blue spruce, which you wouldn't get that idea from how often they sell Colorado spruce. You would think, well, if they're selling a lot of it, it must work well. But it just doesn't. The white spruce, the Black Hills spruce, is just going to perform better in our climate here. It's too moist for the Colorado spruce, but white spruce can handle more moisture. Here we have the Norway spruce, and you can probably find these at local nurseries where you live, or look around for something labeled a living Christmas tree. Sometimes they're sold like that. I bought this from a local nursery, and it had been sheared initially to be a living Christmas tree, but since then I've let it grow without any shearing, and as you can see when you do that, the edges are a little more jagged and it's not quite as neatly conical as a Christmas tree, but I'm letting mine grow naturally. In general, they have a very good vertical leader tendency, although you can see on this particular specimen, I'll probably trim this one right here just to make sure that this top leader receives all of the vertical energy of the tree, because I want to keep it growing vertically as much as possible. Here's another one right next to it, and for whatever reason this growing season the main leader up here died, and Norway spruce is really good about sending up other leaders to become the new vertical leader. I will select one of these for elimination, probably that one, so that there's only a single one. But in general, Norway spruce are very low maintenance, very fast growing, an excellent choice for Tennessee. They handle heat, humidity, a variety of soil conditions, and they're a nice dark green. So Norway spruce, pretty easy to find and a great choice for growing here. Next we have Serbian spruce, Picea omorica, and this one is going to be just slightly harder to find than Norway spruce, but it's online from a lot of online nurseries, and the growth habit of this tree is naturally a little bit more columnar, not quite as wide. So if you have restricted horizontal space, you may want to choose Serbian spruce. It's got a little bit of a bluish cast on the underside of the needles. You can see that. So when the ends of the needles turn up, it adds some color variety. These Serbian spruces have grown really well for me in Tennessee without any problems, so I definitely recommend them. I believe I ordered this one from naturehills.com, but there are many other online nurseries that sell Serbian spruce. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention Norway spruce. The Latin name is Picea abies. And there are a bunch of different cultivars, but I'm just growing the regular straight species. Also relatively easy to find online, and possibly at a local nursery, is the Oriental spruce, Picea orientalis. Contrary to what the name might suggest, it's not from the Far East. It's actually from Eastern Turkey, the nation of Georgia, southern Russia. But it does grow well here. It handles heat and cold, tolerates humidity, tolerates the soil. And for me, it's grown in a pretty good habit. The first year I had it, these 3 branches here were all the same size, and the main vertical leader didn't sprout. There was bud abortion at the apex. So this one side branch kind of turned up on its own, and you can see this year it's reestablishing vertical growth all the way up, and it's put on over a foot of vertical growth. So the tree does have a pretty good tendency to correct any problems that happen with the vertical leader, and that's a good thing in a tree, because once they get really tall, you don't want to have to climb up there with a ladder to trim out multiple side branches. It also has a really unique needle texture. Very small, short needles, not at all sharp, soft to the touch, and a really dark green actually. It stands out as how dark green it is at all times of the year. Oriental spruce. Well, the first 4 spruces I showed you were relatively easy to obtain either online or at local nurseries or even big box retailers. The rest of them on this list, you're going to have to kind of go on a quest to find them. Here is probably the best performer out of all of them that I have, and that is Lijiang spruce. I've mentioned it before. It's from southern China, and it just so happens that evergreenplantnursery.com has them now. They come in a smaller size. I'll show you in a second what they look like. But it's a very attractive tree, a vigorous grower, and in my opinion, the best substitute for Colorado blue spruce. Tolerates heat and humidity, cold, no problem. It's just an awesome tree. It's grown faster than any of my other small spruces. Picea lijiangensis is the Latin name. And here is that small Lijiang spruce that I mentioned I purchased from orientalplantnursery.com. No, sorry, evergreenplantnursery.com. Put on a lot of growth this year. That's like 7 inches of vertical growth, first year in the ground. So it's a great species if you can find Lijiang spruce. Here's the Korean spruce, Picea koreensis. And you can find these on naturehills.com, I believe, right now. And I don't really have much experience growing this. I just planted it this spring, put on decent growth, maybe 2 to 3 inches. I may have to trim away some branches near the top to ensure there's only 1 vertical leader. We'll see. I'll probably leave it all winter long and let it start sprouting in the spring, because you never know when you're going to get apical bud abortion with spruces. So I'll just see which one sprouts the best vertical growth and trim away the rest. But that's Korean spruce. It should do well here. In general, East Asian spruces have the best chance of doing well because they grow in a climate more similar to Tennessee than the western United States. They handle heat, humidity, clay soils. So you'll notice I have a lot of Asian spruces. This is the Picea crassifolia, Qinghai spruce from central China. got a little bit of a bluish cast, and although it only put out maybe 2 to 3 inches of vertical growth this year, it did put on a lot of growth. So I'm hopeful that it will reach higher to the sky in the future. I think that forestfarm.com has these now, and actually Keeping It Green Nursery, another online seller, may also have them. So if you want Qinghai spruce, I think you can get it. And for me, it started off pretty well. Still relatively small, only a foot tall, but it takes time to grow these. Here's the only spruce that I have that's actually native to Tennessee. This is the red spruce, Picea rubens. And in Tennessee you can find these growing on the very highest peaks of the Smoky Mountains. So not really ideally suited to Middle Tennessee. But I do have this one growing in a relatively wet spot that gets afternoon shade and morning shade for that matter. And depending on how other trees grow around it, may get a lot of shade. So that's just about the best microclimate I can create to help the red spruce. But even then, I don't know if it can stand up to the heat that we have here in Middle Tennessee. So it's a little bit of an experiment. But if you want to try one, I think forestfarm.com has them now. Red spruce. From Japan, we have the tiger tail spruce, Picea paulita. The cultivar is Torano, and I believe I got this from coniferkingdom.com. I'm not sure if they have any more. But the interesting thing about this spruce is that the needles are extremely stiff and relatively sharp too. And it put on about 3 inches of vertical growth. It just seems like a very tough tree, very resilient. This one is grafted. I'm not sure what it's grafted onto. I would have to assume Norway spruce rootstock. So I have it staked up a little bit here because it looks like it was a grafted branch, and it doesn't yet have extremely good vertical growth tendency, but it's getting there. Looks pretty good actually. So if you can find it, Picea Torano, tiger tail spruce from Japan. It looks like it can handle almost anything. Feels like a very tough spruce. Okay, this is Wilson spruce, and in contrast to the last one, this one has very small, flexible, almost feathery needles. The Wilson spruce is from central China, and I believe I got this from keepingitgreennursery.com. They may have some in stock. Fairly slow growing. Appears to be only 1.5 inches or 2 inches a year so far, but maybe it'll speed up when it gets older. By the way, the Latin name is Picea wilsonii, Wilson spruce. Okay, here's the Sichuan spruce, Picea montagena. Although actually I think it was mislabeled. I think this is actually Picea aspirata, the dragon spruce, based on my research online. And you can see it has a nice bluish tint to it, almost like a Colorado blue spruce. But it's not from Colorado. They grow in central southern China. So if you can find dragon spruce, I highly recommend it. Gonna make sure this one here becomes the new vertical leader probably. I'll probably stake that. And it put on a good 3 to 4 inches of growth this year. When I first got it from forestfarm.com, it didn't look that healthy, but it's put on new growth and looks better every year. So I have high hopes for it over the long term. We'll see how it does. Here we have Myers spruce, also from central China. And sometimes you can find Myers spruce from fastgrowingtrees.com. That's where I got this one. But you can see all of the apical buds aborted this spring. So all I have is new growth on the side branches. That's not ideal. Actually, I have 2 of these. Here's the other Picea Myers spruce. And all of the apical buds aborted here as well. But this one side branch put on about a 1/2 inch of vertical growth. So far I can't really say that I recommend Myers spruce. It seems to be problematic. But they are available if you want to try it. Here is Shrink's spruce, Picea shrinkiana from northwestern China and Kazakhstan. And this one also had 100% apical bud abortion this spring, although this side branch shows promise to be the new vertical leader. I may do some trimming to make sure that happens. But I can't really say I recommend this one either, because there was a lot of bud loss earlier this spring and we didn't really have any type of cold weather that should bother this one. In fact, this is one of the more cold hardy spruces in my entire collection. So it appears to be having trouble here in Tennessee. I got this one from keepingitgreennursery.com. Shrink spruce. This is the Chihuahuan spruce, and if you can get your hands on a Chihuahuan spruce, I highly recommend it. It's a very unique spruce, appears to grow very well in Tennessee. Seems to be very tolerant of everything. I don't think I've had a single bud that didn't break bud and put on new growth. So it's very vigorous. One possible downside would be that it's extremely sharp. The needles have very sharp tips, so if you think you might be running into it or brushing up against it a lot, maybe a second thought about Chihuahuan spruce. But you can see from its blue color, it's a very good substitute to Colorado blue spruce. I highly recommend it. Hard to find. I think I got this one from forestfarm.com. I've seen them on keepingitgreennursery.com. So watch out for Chihuahuan spruce if you can find it. Obviously, Picea chihuahuana from northwestern Mexico, the state of Chihuahua, and other states. It's a good option. Picea purpurea, the Yunnan spruce from southern China. I also got this one from forestfarm.com, although I don't think they have them now. And it's put on about 2 to 3 inches of growth a year, so not that vigorous, but actually, and usually the buds always sprout, so although it doesn't grow quickly, it does appear to grow reliably in Tennessee. So if you find Yunnan spruce by chance, I say get it.